Hey everybody, welcome back to the LuckyDog Podcast. This is your host, Elias Roush. This podcast is sponsored by EliasRoushMedia.com, photo, video, digital media production. Today we are discussing The Mitchells vs. the Machines. The Mitchells vs. the Machines is a 2021 American computer animated science fiction comedy film produced by Sony Pictures Animation, according to Wikipedia. The film was directed by Mike Rianda. It's his directorial debut. Written by Jeff Rowe and Rianda. Produced by Phil Lord, Chris Miller, and Kirk Abrix. I believe that these are did Phil and Lord Miller, did they were they the Spider-Verse creators? Were they the directors in that? Let me see. They did yeah, they were. Sorry, they were not the directors, but Phil Lord was the writer. I actually don't know who did the Spider-Verse direction. Bob Perschetti, Peter Ramsey, and Rodney Rothman did the direction into the Spider-Verse. But anyways, back to The Mitchells versus the Machines. This movie follows a dysfunctional family that winds up having to save Earth from a robot uprising while on a road trip. This movie has the voices of Danny McBride, Abby Jacobson, Maya Rudolph, Mike Rianda, the director, Eric Andre, Olivia Colman, and a list of other high-profile celebrity names that are more or less cameos throughout the movie. I'll let y'all discover the rest of those. Music by Mark Mothersbaugh. I haven't heard of this guy before. Mark Mothersbaugh. Interesting last name. And it was distributed on Netflix for about a budget. It says approximately between 50 and 100 million, so we're going to average around 75 million. Originally, this movie was called Connected. A lot of people have talked about how weak of a title the name Connected is, and I can't really deny that. Netflix wanted to go with what the director actually wanted to go with, The Mitchells vs. the Machines. So, originally it was supposed to be released last year in 2020, but because of COVID, everyone knows everything was pushed on streaming, and now we're just kind of going back into the reopen phase, but this is one of the movies that ultimately landed up on streaming, and I think for the better. I think family movies are probably going to do gangbuster numbers on streaming services, mostly because if you look at the repetition of kids and how they consume media, they like to find a movie, watch that movie 1,000 times. I did the same thing as a child. I watched Shrek, 20 times in a hotel when I was in there. I just had no idea that, pressing pay now was not replay, So, if you have a movie that is, if a movie is loved by a child, you might as well go ahead and have it on the streaming service. So I think having Mitchells vs. the Machines on Netflix for the intermediate time is probably the best case, especially for bigger families that want, 2 hours of something to keep their family entertained with. That's good for the whole family. I want to be up front. I don't want to be blunt. That I think this movie is going to be very successful with the stylistic choices. Some of the writing is generic and funny enough that I think the majority of the family is going to enjoy it. It's not good enough that I want to rewatch it, though, and I think that's where the critical eye comes in. So, before I get into the plot heavy, let me talk about some of the pros, some of the cons. So, the overall pros of this movie, what do I like about it? I think all of the individual aspects of this movie all work. I think the stylistic flair, I think the overarching um, narrative of them trying to become closer as a family should work, but it's when it is tied into the science fiction robot uprising plot that kind of jumps the shark for me in a way. And so the my biggest criticism of this movie here, I have a comment I left on uh someone's post. So yeah, I said the biggest problem for me was that there are these massive leaps in logic, and a lot of it feels like there's small conversations that they could have avoided having something really big and bad happen. It's kind of the sitcom aspect of it. It's like, you know, uh, dad and daughter don't want to talk, so something inevitably ends up happening, and then the beans get spilled in the third act, and they're like, "I can't believe you did this," and I can't believe you did that, and then it kind of feels a little bit more written to the cue of a TV sitcom, and that's actually what I was kind of gearing at with the writing. Some of the writing of this movie is um is generally focused around families being involved and consumed in their consumer products and in their technology specifically, way too much, over to the point where it's superseding family time. And I can totally see that. I see how that can work. I can see how that could be fun. And it's kind of ironic that we're using a piece of technology to grab the family anyway, to to be connected. It's ironic that they don't want to point the finger at, well, I mean, when we're on Netflix, we're technically watching screens too. We're not, we're not connecting when we're watching the movie about connectedness, when we're watching Mitchell's versus the Machines, and the whole spiel is don't watch your screens too much, and you know be nice to your family, and have respect for one another, that kind of thing, all this family matters kind of stuff. But ultimately we're watching a screen to tell us how this is supposed to be. So I do find the irony in that kind of funny. But anyways, um my biggest problem with this movie was that it felt very much in the realm of set up joke, set up joke, set up joke, set up cutaway joke, set up cutaway joke, set up leap of logic joke, and occasional sprinkled in of these really sentimental family pieces of writing. It's like, can't we all just get together and do something, kumbaya kind of thing. And I think that the film is not quite strong enough from the writing perspective when it comes to interweaving why this antagonist is is using these machines for this robot takeover. Without going into too many spoilers, this is all in the trailers, from what I can tell. So I don't believe any of this is spoilers at this moment. But I do got to say that this whole subplot of the science fiction realm does not seem to fit in correlation with how it means to be quote unquote connected. And I think that's my biggest problem, is that uh, the antagonist has almost nothing to do with any of the core values of what our our main character Katie is going through. So, um, yeah, overall, my biggest problem in this movie was the leaps of logic. The technology seemed very plausible for a while, and then at certain points, it just became, slap something on it and it becomes smart. That's not exactly how things work. So, um, yeah, I don't want to go too much more into spoilers without jumping into the spoiler section. So, thank you for listening, watching Lucky Dog Podcast. Yes, I would recommend this movie. It's about a 7 out of 10. It's not perfect. It made me laugh. It's a little long. Could use a little editing. Voices, loved them. Style, loved it. I would watch another movie in this universe because I still feel like this is a really good punch in the right direction. Um, there's things that pop up in the screen throughout the entire movie that feel so random. I almost felt like it was from a different mind that was happening. So, I I did have a couple quibbles with it. I did have some good things to say about it. There's kind of a mixed bag. Overall, it's going to work for the family, is what I'm going to say. Um, I don't think it's going to get very deep in it, but I am seeing some people say this is one of the best animations of the year, and I don't deny it, but then again, I don't think that there's a lot of competition at this point. So let's talk about the plot for anyone that wants to listen to the spoiler section of Mitchell's versus the Machines. Please join patreon.com/LuckyDog Podcast, and you'll get this review early. We have 3 different tiers. We have the $1 tier, $2 tier, and $5 tier. Um, you join the $2 tier and you will already be listening to this podcast early. You could have listened to this essentially as I dropped it. There's a bit of a delay when I podcast and produce it and everything. So the Patreon members always will get it first and early. So be sure to check out patreon.com/LuckyDog Podcast, and you'll be able to get this full review. Be sure to check out YouTube, get it live on Twitch. Go to SoundCloud, get it mastered. You already know. Instagram, we're always posting crazy photos and stuff like that. I might show some of my favorite screenshots of the movie, because I do think this is a very visually rich film. I think that Sony Pictures Animations has started to really craft and hone on to their own style. And I kind of like this splash page. I don't really know how to this animation, I guess is what I would say, that I'm seeing in a lot of it. It feels like a combination of like 2D, 3D a little bit. So yeah, thank you for listening, watching Look It All Podcast. Let's jump into the spoiler section. Here's the plot, according to Wikipedia. Katie Mitchell is a quirky, aspiring filmmaker in Kentwood, Michigan, who often clashes with her nature-obsessed and technophobe father, Rick, and has recently been accepted into film school in California. The evening before Katie leaves, Rick accidentally breaks her laptop over fighting over Rick watching one of Katie's previous short films, and Katie wanting it back. Disappointing as they cancel, previous short films and Katie wanting it back. Disappointing her as they drift apart, Rick decides to cancel. I can't talk this morning. Rick decides to cancel Katie's flight and instead take her along with her mother, Linda, younger brother, and family dog Mochi on a cross-country road trip to her college as one last bonding experience. So it kind of feels like they took the plot of like National Lampoon's like Family Vacation or not Vegas Vacation, but which one's one of the National Lampoon vacations when they're going across the touring across America. And I thought there was going to be a lot more of that road trip experience. To be honest, I feel like